I didn't know it was a ceremony until the chairs were arranged like it mattered. The table was longer than it needed to be, set with matching napkins, the kind that imply an occasion even when no one names it. My sister had brought her own wine glasses, thin stems etched at the rim like she was curating the moment. Dad wore his I am a founder blazer, the one he saved for bank meetings and funerals. I noticed where my son was seated at the end near the kitchen door, close enough to hear, far enough to be forgettable. I told myself to relax. This was just dinner. This was just family. This was just another night where we would translate each other's meanings until everyone could leave without admitting what was said. Dad stood. He didn't clink the glass. He didn't need to. The room quieted on instinct like it always had. He talked about beginnings, his father, the hardware store. He the years that felt like a test. He thanked my sister for her vision, a word he liked because it sounded earned. He said legacy 3 times, the way people say amen. Then smiling like he'd finally found the sentence that made it all make sense. He said it. Your sister gave me everything I ever wanted. It wasn't cruel. That was the problem. It was tidy. It wrapped decades into a bow and handed it to the room. My son didn't move. I saw it the way you see a crack form in glass before it spreads. Fear it stayed square, his hands folded, his face polite. He waited for the rest of the sentence, the part where people say, and also when it didn't come, he leaned toward me, so close his breath warmed my wrist. So I'm not part of it. He didn't ask like he was angry. He asked like he was checking the weather. I didn't answer him right away. I was counting years, calls, the math I'd been doing quietly for so long it felt like breathing. Dad's late-night emergencies. The way my sister would send a text that started with, "Can you cover this just once?" The way just once, learn to reproduce, rent bail, car payment, a bridge loan that never came back. I remembered the night my son slept on the couch cause we'd driven across town to help Dad sign, something he didn't understand but wanted done by morning. I remembered the apology that followed. Always the same. This is temporary. This is for the future. The future was standing now at the end of the table asking a question no one had prepared for. I picked up my glass, not to toss, to give my hand something to do. "I'm glad you're happy," I said. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Steady, almost kind. Truly. But if legacy means choosing who counts only when the photos are taken, then don't call us when you need money. Not for rent bail. Not for a car payment. We're out. The silence didn't crash. It settled. That's how you know it landed. Dad blinked. My sister's smile stayed on too long, like a screen frozen mid-animation. Someone cleared their throat, a reflex without a plan. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't list receipts. I didn't look at my son. I knew if I did, I would soften. And this was not a moment for softening. Death isn't. Dad started, then stopped. He searched for a word that would make the room agree with him. This isn't about that. I nodded. That's the problem. I didn't explain further. Explanations invite negotiations, and I wasn't here to negotiate my child's belonging. The doorbell rang. It was almost funny, the timing, almost too clean. My sister stood flustered, smoothing her skirt as she went to answer it. She returned with a woman in a grey suit who carried a thin folder like it was lighter than it looked. "I'm sorry," the woman said, already professional, already neutral. "I'm with the firm handling the trust. We needed signatures tonight to meet the bank's deadline." Dad straightened. "Authority does that. It rearranges spines." The woman spoke carefully, the way people do when they know words can change weather. She confirmed what had been prepared, what had been assumed. She named beneficiaries and contingencies. She explained the conditions for future access to funds. The clauses that activate only when someone asks for help instead of offering it. I hadn't known she would come. That mattered. This wasn't a trap. It was a hinge. "And just to be clear," she said, looking at Dad, then at my sister, "only personal advances going forward would require unanimous consent from the trustees." Trustees. Plural. Dad looked at me. Really looked. Not like a father. Like someone realizing the room had been wired differently than he thought. When did this happen? He asked. Last year, I said. After the third temporary thing. The woman waited, pen poised. Dad signed. My sister signed. The ink dried like it always does. Quietly. Irreversibly. Dinner did not resume. People spoke in fragments as if full sentences might tip something over. When we stood to leave, Dad touched my arm. Well, talk, he said, which was his way of asking me to make this easier. Maybe, I said, which was my way of not promising. In the car, my son watched the street lights blur. He didn't ask again. I didn't mean to cause. He started. You didn't, I said. You noticed something. That's not causing. That's seeing. He nodded. He believed me. That mattered more than anything signed tonight. The calls came later. Not dramatic, practical. A message that began with, "Hey, quick question." Another that ended with "just this once." I answered politely, declined. Suggested alternatives that didn't involve us. Each no was calm. Each no held. Weeks passed. Dad stopped calling at night. When he did call, it was daylight and his voice had learned a new register. Less certain, more careful. We spoke about weather, about nothing. At a school assembly, my son scanned the room and found me without effort. He smiled, then looked back at the stage. The play was forgettable. The moment wasn't. I don't know how this ends. Reconciliation isn't a ribbon you tie. It's a discipline. It might come, might not, but something has already shifted. Not loudly, not triumphantly, quietly, undeniably. And that for now is enough.